200 years, there have been reports of giant, man-like creatures roaming the vast mountain regions of the Pacific Northwest and Canada. Hundreds of people have encountered these creatures the Indians call Sasquatch.
Joking about Bigfoot. In February of this year, a woman and her husband heard strange sounds for 2 nights and laughed about how they sounded like the Bigfoot sounds on television shows. That was their first mistake. Then on the 3rd night at dusk, they looked into the woods that bordered their property in Heflin, Alabama, and this is what happened. We saw what looked like Bigfoot peeking around a tree at us. We watched it for approximately 5 minutes as it appeared to look at us from the left and the right of the tree trunk. I dismissed it as being a distortion with the trees and wind. I turned to go into the house and looked back and distinctly saw what could have been only Bigfoot running away. I yelled for my husband and he also saw it running away. There was no mistaking what we saw. Both the husband and wife said the figure must have stood approximately 8 feet tall and its fur was very dark. Was Bigfoot spying on them? Who knows? Number 9. Side of a mountain. In December 2022, TikTok user Sasquatch Project, who claims to be connecting the cryptid community, posted a video of what appears to be Bigfoot. The text on the video reads, "Real giant caught on video in Mexico." The video shows what appears to be some sort of mountain or cave. There's a hole in the side of it and there's a large man looking out. He seems to be staring at the person recording and then backs up and goes back into the rocks. Many people in the comments made jokes, but a lot of them think it's real. One user commented, "What's going to be the government's excuse for this one? The video and the zoom is on point." Others are commenting that it's like the film The Hills Have Eyes, that it's a giant or Bigfoot, but who knows? Number 8. Bigfoot hiking. In 2001, a youth group was camping in the Marble Mountain Wilderness, California, when their leader, Jim Mills, noted a strange looking creature sulking along a ridge nearby. He believed it was Bigfoot and filmed it for nearly 7 minutes, making the somewhat grainy footage the longest video of an alleged Bigfoot sighting. The video shows Bigfoot walking down a hill. The creature is huge, it's dark in color, and is walking on 2 feet, but has somewhat of a strange stride. It's definitely not human, and no animal could appear like that, so the obvious answer is it's Bigfoot. But everyone in the video is shockingly calm though, which is crazy to me. Number 7. The footprint. In 1980, locals in Johnstown, Pennsylvania were baffled by a footprint they found. They first discovered the massive print in the mud and it belonged to somebody or something's right foot. Additionally, it had 6 toes rather than 5, and the second imprint of the left foot was found 8 feet away from the right print. It was so big and they measured it, finding it was 17.75 inches long. Now, this didn't spook too many people though, because according to the Associated Press, the footprint coincided with reports of strange noises and a strong but unusual odor in the area. Again, I love how everyone was just so chill about this. Number 6. Bigfoot crossing the road. This story is from a man in Canada. He said, "I was going moose hunting and my friend was driving and we had been on the road about 9 to 10 hours going to Ignis, Ontario, and we were on the Trans-Canada Highway. This area has the bush cut back some 30 to 40 years on each side of the road when I noticed an animal coming out of the north side of a ditch area and run across a 2-lane highway. This animal ran across the road on 2 legs and was about 20 yards away. By the time it crossed the road, my friend turned to me and said, 'What the hell was that?' I said, 'Don't you know that was a Sasquatch / a Bigfoot.' It was about 6 to 7 feet tall. It had very long and muscular arms that went down to its knees. It was covered in fur that reminded me of moose hair. It looked like it was as tall or a little bit taller than the cab of the truck. It only took about 5 or 6 steps across the 2-lane highway and down to the ditch we were passing. I think it's a female because of breasts that were in the lower chest area, heavy legs and buttocks, about 300 to 400 pounds. It had less hair on the chest area and a partially covered homid face that I could see muscle definition on the arms and shoulders. Number 5. Tracks in BC. This story comes from a group of people from British Columbia in December 2022. We were returning home last night and 2 members others in our vehicle said, "Look, is that a bear?" The person in the front seat saw what looked like a huge man standing on 2 legs. It bent over and fell to 4 legs. The person in the back saw the animal on the 4 legs. They both said it was not a bear. We live nearby, so when we got home, all 4 of us decided to go back and look for tracks. We went and filmed and took photos of a whole bunch of massive tracks that looked like they were from a biped animal. The tracks were bipedal in pattern and in a fairly straight line, except at points where they were side by side, as if the creature was stopping and standing still. We have also been walking in the woods near our house, and one time I saw a structure/setup of trees that looked deliberately placed in different crisscross arrangements. I also heard deep resonant sounds one night. It sounded part human, part animal. The Ohio howl matched exactly what she heard right outside her cabin, only a few hundred feet from where the sighting was. Number 4. Family witness. In 1996, this family saw Bigfoot. This user says, "My 2 daughters and I were driving into Yakima from our home in Natchez. The road runs along the Natchez River, and I looked down at the river, as I always do, to see deer or bald eagles. But this time, I saw a large dark figure at the edge of the water behind some bushes. Slamming on my brakes and backing up far enough to see the river again, the large figure was gone and nowhere to be seen. Of course, my kids said, 'Sure, Mom. Bigfoot? I don't think so.' About 2 weeks later, I was driving on the same road coming home, and about half a mile from where I thought I had seen the other one, there were 2 standing side by side just looking down at the water. One was about 1.5 feet taller than the other, both dark in color with very wide shoulders. Then about a week later, my husband was coming home. When he got home, he asked me where I thought I had seen the 2 Bigfoot. I told him, and he said that he had just seen something like I saw in the same area. He's a real skeptic, so for him to say he saw something, he must have. I look every day, and so far I have not seen my friends down by the water, but I won't give up looking. Number 3. Creature Week sighting. I was a vendor at Creature Week at Salt Fork State Park on May 4th in 2013. At 9:45 p.m., a fisherman that was in a tournament came all shook up and said, "At first I thought you were a bunch of nuts until now." He said he saw Bigfoot. This caught our attention, and the 5 of us decided to go out the next morning at 6 a.m. to check out the site. So I got there at 5 a.m. and waited, so I said I'll start without them and maybe they'll catch up with me. I started to head down the sagebrush trail and headed to where the fishermen saw them. I kept walking, and when I hit the first turn of the sagebrush trail, I heard something like talking on the ridge on my left. At first I thought it was friend A and friend B with friend A's black shirts on. So I hit a tree and yelled, "Hey guys, wait up." Then they started to walk faster and I yelled, "Very funny guys," and this is when I got a great look at them. It was 2 Bigfoots and they were black and huge. I tried to catch up with them, but once they got to the bottom of the ridge, they took off into the brush. I tried to follow them, but once they got into the brush, I could not hear or see them. But I got a great look at them. They were black as coal, and the hair length was as long as a bear and well groomed. At any time, they could have stopped and tore me in half, but all they wanted to do was get away as fast as possible. Number 2. Bigfoot on a highway. This family has seen Bigfoot, and the wife retold the story, saying, "In October 1997, I was returning home from work on the US Highway 241 just outside Gladstone, Michigan. I got off work at 5, picked up my kids, and my son was in the front seat with me and my daughters were in the back. We had just left Gladstone city limits on a 4-lane highway when I noticed what I thought was a hunter crouched down on the opposite side of the median of the highway. As I approached, I said to my son, 'Look at that stupid hunter, why is he just sitting there?' But as we got closer to the man, or now I say creature, stood up. It was brown colored and it crossed the highway with a couple of steps as it was on the other side of the highway within seconds. As I passed, it put its arms down to its side and stepped into the woods and it was gone. I have seen bears, deer, wolves, coyotes, almost every living creature here. My mind raced after I saw this, looking for the logical answer of what this could be, and the only thing it could have been was a Bigfoot. Then 2 days later, after I saw the creature, it was reported on the local radio station that a Bigfoot was spotted on the same highway. And coming up at number 1 is the cottage Bigfoot. This dad saw Bigfoot when his family was away at their cottage. He said, "We had been at the cottage for a few days when my sons and I heard a series of grunts, chirps, and squeals. It was fairly obvious that the sounds were coming from 2 areas about 15 degrees apart. There was also the noise of wood breaking and banging that was quite loud. We stepped out onto the deck to listen better. It was fairly obvious that one noise was getting closer to the other. The noises were really loud loud, and it sounded like mayhem was breaking loose, trees being smacked and banging noises, shouts, and whoops. Then it went quiet really quickly, which was followed by a series of deep whooping noises and clicks, which went on intermittently past the point I went to sleep. The next day, I saw this big black brown thing sitting on a boulder about 20 feet above the water. I thought at first it was a bear, but when a bear sits, its legs just stick out in front, slightly splayed. The thing had knees, and it was sitting with its knees up near its chest. I was not sure of what I was seeing, so I looked away and went back at it. I was not mistaken, it had knees and was covered in hair with no neck, and then slapped its hands on the rock about 3 times, both hands at the same time. It looked kinda straggly and matted. It was huge on top like the chest area, but it had scrawny by comparison legs. The hair on its legs were thinner and lighter. Then the thing just stood up and walked into the brush behind it. Seems like Bigfoot was just trying to enjoy the view of the lake to me. Strange sounds. A Bigfoot sighting became a federal investigation when a man fired his weapon inside a national park in Kentucky. Brad Ginn told news outlets he and his girlfriend were camping nearby and were awakened at about 1 a.m. by a man with his son. We got out of the tent and saw a man who told us their campsite had been destroyed by someone or something. The man, who was with his young son, showed them his weapon on his hip and told him the area was popular for Bigfoot sightings. The couple climbed back into their tent as the man walked away to investigate with his son in tow. We heard them coming back about 10 minutes later. We heard them yelling, "I see it!" Brad said. We saw a flash from his weapon, and he shot maybe 20 yards from the side of our tent into the pitch black darkness. After this, Brad and his girlfriend decided to leave and report the incident, which was the smart thing to do. A park spokeswoman, Molly Schwarr, said there was an investigation and that the park was safe to visit. The statement did not confirm a Bigfoot sighting, but Molly said that no threat remains in the park. Federal regulations prohibit the discharge of a firearm in the national park, and park officials know the identity of the person who allegedly fired the weapon, but no charges had been filed. Number 9. Thrown logs. In 2015, a pair of Bigfoot hunters were hot on the trail of a Bigfoot outside Houston, Texas. While following the beast, they realized the creature was unhappy with their presence. As they began their overnight hunt, the lead investigator realized that something was throwing full-sized logs at them from the tree line. That's according to Wes Germer, host of the Sasquatch Chronicle podcast, whose team ventured into the East Texas piney woods. In the early night, the noise came. We heard this thing crash through the bush, and then we heard this thing start crashing, just crash, 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 and you can hear it walking, and you can hear it breaking branches as it's going. Then the giant bolted off and plowed fiercely through the dense brush with astonishing speed. This thing moved so fast, it probably covered 150 yards like nothing. As we neared the spot where we heard the beast lurking, a noise grew and I knew what it was. It was a log coming, and it was a big log, and you could hear it being thrown. And I ducked down because I thought for sure it was going to hit us, but it hit the tree right in front of us, and I just couldn't believe what was happening. Wes says it was a warning, and that it wasn't the only time Sasquatch has thrown logs at unwelcomed intruders. Number 8. New footprint. In March 2022, in Big Sur, California, a hiker spotted a very large footprint. They took a picture of it next to their own foot for perspective and shared it on Reddit's Bigfoot page, where commenters discussed if they felt the print belonged to a Sasquatch or if it was nothing. And there were plenty of believers. One person wrote, "This is the first imprint I have seen that isn't clearly a bear. Good find." While another stated, "I wish the print was more fresh, but it really does look more like a Bigfoot track," and a third chimed in, "What a solid print." Someone else added, "Definitely Sasquatch. The upper foot impressions is relative to the lower width and diameter of depth. I'd reach out to the local Bresto Bigfoot Field Researchers Organization in your area ASAP." Now, it honestly does look huge, and to me, you can even see the toe prints. Seems pretty convincing to me. Number 7. Bigfoot eats hogs. East Texas is the home to many reported sightings of Bigfoot, including one particular encounter from a hunter in Panola County. The witness claims that while he was hog hunting, he watched a Sasquatch leap out of the woods and grabbed one of the hogs. The report states that the Bigfoot began making loud whooping noises, which were met with more howls from somewhere off in the distance. Before walking back into the woods, the creature stared directly at the hunter and growled. Seems seemed like the hunter got a little too close to Bigfoot territory. Now those whooping sounds would definitely creep me out, especially if there were more coming from the forest. Ugh. Number 6. Face to face. One of the 3 Midland County Bigfoot encounters documented details of a witness discovering an ape-like creature on the first day of hunting season in 1997. The witness claims to have seen the legendary creature on November 15th, 1997, while driving in a wooded area near Coleman on Coleman Road, about 6 miles north of M20. They said, "I was driving north around 6:45 and saw a creature coming out of the ditch." The report describes the creature as having a flat, ape-like face and hair on its arms and head. The witness claims to have come within 10 feet of the creature when it looked at the witness. As the witness got closer to the beast, it made eye contact with him before disappearing into the trees, and that is terrifying. Number 5. Bigfoot likes children. This user tells a story of seeing Bigfoot as a child. They said, "I've had 2 separate sightings here in central Alabama, once when I was about 5 and another when I was 19. The first one, I was at my Nana's house playing outside in a treehouse my dad and Pa built for me, and I looked off into the woods and saw a large light brown bipedal creature standing there watching me. So I ran inside to get my Nana, and when we came back out to the treehouse, it was gone. The second time, me and my wife were coming back from a buddy's house real late at night, and I saw something large cross on 2 legs in front of a yellow road sign up ahead. These signs were about 10 feet tall, and this thing covered the whole sign when I walked in front of it." Now, many people believe that Bigfoot likes children. While many don't think they actually eat children, they think they might try to kidnap them to keep as pets, as they like to watch kids for the same reason people like to watch kittens or puppies playing, and there's a similar urge to take one home with them. Number 4. Falling Bigfoot. Bigfoot has been reportedly spotted in Colorado more than 100 times in recent years, including one notable daylight spotting that occurred in Summit County, Colorado. In the summer of 2019, a daytime hiker was taking a break near an old log cabin in the area of Mayflower Gulch near Frisco when he spotted something strange at about 11,000 feet of elevation. He reported seeing a large bipedal creature attempting and failing to climb a 20-foot high snow wall. After the failed attempt at scaling the barrier, the creature moved on and out of sight. The hiker was joined by 2 others and they searched the area. During this search, the group was able to locate prints in the snow, including large handprints and footprints. That being said, they were unable to again locate the actual creature. The report prompted Bigfoot Field Research Organization investigator Scott Miles to further look into the report. Scott decided to meet up with the witness at the site of the spotting. At the scene, the witness was able to recount the sighting in a manner consistent with the initial report, pointing out exact landmarks involved in his story. After deeper analysis of the witness's account, Scott said, "I believe that the witness saw exactly what he reported and was witness to a Sasquatch, probably a young individual that accidentally or naively got caught in a compromising situation in the daytime in a fairly high traffic area." Number 3. In the swamp. In 2015, 2 men canoeing in Tampa, Florida swamp were expecting to see an alligator when they heard rustling on the bank. They soon realized that the creature they were watching was no alligator. One of the men said, "Initially, it was exciting. It was like, oh, is that a bear? That's pretty cool. But when we moved closer, it started to look less and less like a bear." In that moment, I was looking at it and getting a little bit freaked out, especially once it started really moving. You could tell that he was slapping the water, and it looked like maybe he was grabbing something. At the time, I was thinking, holy what the hell is this? By the time it walked off, my buddy was just like, let's go now. The friend moved one of the canoe paddles making a noise, which seemed to catch the attention of the hairy individual in the swamp. I don't know if it was a coincidence that it started moving because of the noise, but it seemed to know that we were there. He said his friend was so shaken by the experience that he won't talk about it. Number 2. His face. This user describes what they saw when they came face to face with Bigfoot. They saw the beast in early spring 1994 or 95 in Salt Fork State Park in Ohio, Hazak's Cave. I hope I said that right. He said, "The one I saw had black sclera, the white part of her eyes, and cheek pads like a male orangutan. It was not a man in a suit. It threw rocks at me as I hiked a path towards a small waterfall, and I was a little confused but oblivious. The last rock was bigger and hit me in the calf and hurt. I spun around quickly towards the direction it came from, yelling, 'That really hurt,' thinking it was somebody messing with me, and saw a head from the eyes looking up over a fallen tree tree or ridge maybe 15 feet away. It looked like an orangutan wearing a ghillie suit. I looked in the eyes for maybe 5 seconds trying to comprehend what I was looking at. Golden brown eyes with black sclera and cheek pads like a male orangutan. It didn't look malicious really, had more of an okay, you got the point look. It casually turned its eyes away and ducked back behind the tree or ridge. Then I realized what I saw and got back to my car. All I could think was that, because of his cheek pads, he was the dominant male of the troop. They must have been at the water source that I was hiking towards, and he was keeping me from getting closer. I was maybe 3/4 of the way there, but the smaller rock started at about the halfway point and got gradually bigger until I caught on. I told my brother and best friend, and they didn't believe me, so I dropped or suppressed it for 20 years. I didn't think of it again until I saw a Bigfoot toy and thought they got the face wrong. And coming in at number 1 is the traffic cam sighting. A Washington Department of Transportation traffic camera near Sherman Pass captured Bigfoot standing in the snow in January 2020. At least one person at the Washington State Department of Transportation seems to think they saw Bigfoot after tweeting out some puzzling images captured by one of the department's webcams. Sasquatch spotted, the Department East Twitter account tweeted, along with 3 circled and zoomed in photos. I'm not superstitious, just a little stitious. The employee points out that there appears to be something in the bottom left part of the frame. It looks like a person-shaped figure silhouetted against an evergreen tree. Might be Sasquatch, we will leave that up to you, the tweet said. The tweet also says that the photos were captured on State Road 20 Sherman Pass, a route that winds its way through the forested Cascade Mountains in the northeastern part of the state. The spot is about 70 kilometers south of the Canada-US border in Grand Forks, BC. Honestly, I think it could be Bigfoot. It looks convincing. They live. In Washington state, a team of amateur Bigfoot researchers called the Olympic Project claimed to have discovered a collection of nests which belonged to Bigfoot. They had primatologists study them, with the conclusion being that they appear to have been created by a primate. There have been structures of broken and twisted foliage seemingly placed in specific areas, which have been attributed by some to Bigfoot behavior. In some reports, lodgepole pine and other small trees have been observed bent, uprooted, or stacked in patterns such as weaved and crisscrossed, leading to some to theorize that they are potential territorial markings. Some instances have included entire deer skeletons being suspended in high trees. Some Bigfoot researchers allege that Bigfoot throws rocks as territorial displays and for communication and audible blows struck against trees or wood knocking. Number 9. Where the species came from. Primatologist John R. Napier and anthropologist Gordon Strensenberg have suggested a species of Paranthropus as a possible candidate for the Bigfoot's identity, such as Paranthropus robutus with its gorilla-like crest skull and bipedal gait. Paranthropus is characterized by robust skulls with a prominent gorilla-like sagittal crest among the middle line, which suggests strong chewing muscles and broad herbivorous teeth used for grinding. Now, it's great that they believe this, but fossils of Paranthropus are found only in Africa, so it wouldn't really explain Bigfoot being in North America, but maybe it's something similar. Number 8. Research. Doing scientific research, Steve Moon, who has 3 MFAs and a master's in anthropology, has studied Bigfoot for the past 10 years, and he claims to have had at least 12 sightings. If you want credibility to build these theories, if you want to test, you want to actually discover things, then you've got to follow that method, he said. His ultimate goal is to prove Bigfoot's existence so the species may be appreciated and preserved. We all know that he exists, but now we need to find a way for science to accept the data, he said. While on a trail in the forest, Steve mimicked a Bigfoot's howl and he could hear a response. It was recorded and the recorder picked up a faint animal-like sound after his howl. Though it is almost inaudible, there is something there. Steve said, I may have gotten a response. It's 2 seconds after my call ends. It's descending followed by a percussive ascending note. If I were going to interpret this possible response, it sounds like a Sasquatch was offended by my call. Number 7. It's not just one species. Now, all around the world, people tell of mysterious beasts that are part human, part ape, typically large, hairy creatures that walk on 2 legs, but always seem to stay just out of sight. There isn't just a Bigfoot in North America, but there are other beasts as well. A yowie is found in Australia, particularly in the eastern part of the continent. continent. There have been over 3,000 distinct yowie sightings that have been reported in the Blue Mountain area of west of Sydney. There's the Yeti, which is located in the Himalayas, which is also called the abominable snowman. The orang penyek is located in central Sumatra, Indonesia. Orang penyek means a short person in Indonesian, which makes sense because it has a short stature and a human-like face. Local folklore says that these creatures walk with back-pointing feet to confuse anyone trying to track them. And finally, a chemosit is located in east central Kenyan forests. Some witnesses say that the chemosit looks like a hyena or bear and call it a Nandi bear after the Kenyan tribe that lives in its reported range. The Nandi people, however, consider the creature to be an enormous, ferocious primate that enjoys eating the brains of its victims. If there are so many creatures like this around the world, they have to exist then, right? Number 6. The theory. There have been many studies surrounding Bigfoot, and one study was conducted by John Napier and published in his book Bigfoot, the Yeti, and Sasquatch in Myth and Reality in 1973. John wrote that if a conclusion is to be reached based on scant extant hard evidence, science must declare Bigfoot does not exist. However, he found it difficult to entirely reject thousands of alleged tracks scattered over 125,000 square miles, or to dismiss all the many hundreds of eyewitnesses' accounts. John concluded, "I'm convinced that Sasquatch exists, but whether it is all it's cracked up to be is another matter altogether. There must be something in the Northwest America that needs explaining, and that something leaves man-like footprints." Number 5. Recently spotted in Pennsylvania. The Bigfoot Field Organization, aka BFRO, has their own website filled with hundreds of stories of people spotting Bigfoot. On the website, a story was posted by a user saying, "On October 5th, 2022, while my boyfriend and I were biking on the ghost town trails near Ebensburg, Pennsylvania, we saw a Bigfoot coming about 150 yards in front of us. He was walking along the trail towards us. We couldn't see his face, but when he saw us, he turned around quickly and walked into the woods. As we went by, we looked into the woods and didn't see anything. It was really shocking as there were no sounds or smells. As he was walking, you could see how big his stride was, and there was a huge space between his legs. We thought this was a once-in-a-lifetime thing and thought it was so cool. Yes, Bigfoot does exist." And just in case you think the BFRO just took a submitted report, the site reported that it did a follow-up and spoke with the witnesses. It even names them on the site, and they found their testimony to be credible. The investigator who put it all together, Matthew Moneymaker, who was mentioned in part 1 of the series. If you haven't seen part 1 and part 2, check them out. Number 4. 3 photos of Bigfoot. A keen hunter once claimed to encounter Bigfoot and unveiled shocking photo proof to the world after setting up cameras outside his house. Craig Salk really loved hunting with his wife, and to increase the odds of their hunting success, Craig set up a number of trail cameras on his land. In 2012, one of his cameras snapped a mysterious figure that didn't appear to be animal or human. Luckily, Craig was a big fan of the show Finding Bigfoot on Animal Planet, and he knew exactly what he had to do. He reached out to the TV channel and showed the producers the image captured on his cameras. Animal Planet was massively impressed by the fact that Craig had managed to get 3 snaps of the mysterious creature and filmed an episode with him. After the episode aired, Craig was suddenly a star, and he was flooded with phone calls and visits from Americans who wanted to share their own bizarre paranormal experiences. Craig and his wife soon opened their land to the world to let anyone come out and examine the spot where Bigfoot was seen, take a look at the pictures, and judge for themselves. Number 3. First sighting ever. David Thompson was a surveyor and trader who worked for the Hudson's Bay Company and the Northwest Company. He was considered one of North America's great pathfinders and surveyors as he traveled through Western North America between 1785 and 1812. Once he saw Bigfoot and wrote in his journal of his finding while in Alberta, Canada. He wrote, "January 7th, 1811. Continuing on our journey in the afternoon, we came on the track of a large animal. The snow about 6 inches deep on the ice. I measured it, 4 large toes, each 4 inches in length, to each a short claw. The ball of the foot sunk 3 inches lower than the toes. The hinder part of the foot didn't mark well. The length 14 inches by 8 inches in breadth, walking from north to south, and having passed about 6 hours. As the snow was about 6 inches in depth, the track was well defined, and we could see it it for a full 100 yards from us. This animal was proceeding north to south. We did not attempt to follow it, we had no time for it, and the hunters, eager as they are to follow and shoot every animal, made no attempt to follow this beast, for what could the balls of our fowling guns do against such an animal? Number 2. The Battle of Ape Canyon. The most successful launching pad for the public's obsession with Bigfoot is a battle that supposedly took place in a narrow gorge on the east flank of Mount St. Helens. The gorge is now called Ape Canyon. That's where, in the summer of 1924, a group of gold prospectors stumbled out of the woods shaking and glassy-eyed to tell of a 7-foot-tall ape-like animals attacking them with boulders. Fred Beck and 4 others described coming upon gorilla men near where they had built a small cabin. They saw 4 of the giant animals moving through the forest with erect, human-like strides. They were covered with long black hair, their ears were about 4 inches long and stuck straight up. They had 4 toes, short and stubby. The witnesses estimated each animal weighed around 400 pounds. Taken aback at the sight of the huge beasts, Fred fired his rifle at one of the creatures and struck 3 times, resulting in the wounded animal toppling off a cliff. This would be a mistake though, as that night the men were awakened when huge stones began hitting against their cabin. Then they heard and felt giant bodies slamming against the walls and door. The 8 men were seeking revenge and eventually tore a hole in the roof, allowing them to target Fred. Many of the rocks fell through the hole in the roof, and 2 of the rocks struck Fred, one of them rendering him unconscious for nearly 2 hours. Then, when the sun began to come up, the animals broke off their attack and slipped away. The men then poked their heads out the door, and when they decided the coast was clear, they ran out of the woods. And coming in at number 1, Bigfoot kidnapping. In 1924, Albert Ostman, a lumberjack and woodsman, went on vacation in the woods. Albert had heard stories about the man-beast who supposedly roamed these woods but refused to believe them. Then everything changed. One night when he was asleep, a Sasquatch picked him up and carried him off while he was in his sleeping bag. He was carried in a sleeping bag across the country for 3 hours by the Sasquatch. The Sasquatch then dropped Albert down on a plateau, and standing around him was a family of 4 of the creatures, 2 adults and 2 children. Albert claims he was kept captive by them for 6 days. One of the Bigfoots was reported as being 8 feet tall. Now, Albert had a gun, but he decided not to use it as they had done him no harm. He stayed with the Bigfoot family, stating he ate sweet-tasting grass that they gave him, and the female Sasquatch washed and stacked leaves. He escaped by making the large male Sasquatch groggy by feeding him some snuff. Albert did not tell his story for more than 24 years after it happened, in fear of being thought of as crazy. But as more Sasquatch stories appeared in the press, Albert decided to tell his story.
Coming in at number 10, we have the Marble Mountain Bigfoot. This is one of the most famous Bigfoot videos of all time. It was taken when a team of Bigfoot hunters went in search for the mysterious beast, and they might have got what they were looking for. Let's have a look at this clip.
See the patch of snow in the middle there? There's 3 patches of snow up there. See the one right up, straight up above the patch of snow?
Right under that big wall.
I mean, shaky camera footage and Bigfoot go together like peanut butter and jelly. You know, there's even a rumor that Bigfoot has the ability to distort cameras, and that's why no one has been able to get a good shot of him. But looking at this footage, it's very hard to tell what we are looking at. That could be a guy walking around on his own enjoying the wilderness, but at the same time, he is so far out in the bush. It would be very strange for someone to be that deep into the woods without any supplies, because it's very clear in this video that they have no sort of backpack or survival bag, and no survivalist would leave their supplies just lying around while they're scoping out the area. Maybe this was a Sasquatch just hanging out on his own. Coming in at number 9, we have the Sasquatch Genome Project. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of the Sasquatch Genome Project, but it's a group of dudes who want nothing more than to find Bigfoot and study him. And honestly, they all look like cool dudes. They were on the news in Texas, and all of them have like mullets and ponytails. I bet beyond tips on how to find Sasquatch, they can also give you great tips on what products to use in your hair. But all jokes aside, these guys probably have the best footage of Bigfoot ever. Here's some of the clips that were able to work their way onto the local news. Use clip 2.
Seen short video clips of the legendary and very shy creature. The group spent 5 years and $500,000 coming to this conclusion. One clip is of
I mean, those all look pretty convincing. We just need to find a way to get a clear shot of this guy. Also, it's great to know that there's a group of people out there that you can join right now that can help you in your efforts to find Bigfoot. When I was a little kid and people asked me what I wanted to be when I grew up, a Bigfoot hunter was never an option. Coming in at number 8, we have Sasquatch in Virginia. Take me home, country roads is what this big old Sasquatch was thinking when he came out and was spotted by these two dudes. This next clip was from a news station in Virginia. The footage was taken by a father and son on a camping trip. Honestly, that is the most wholesome way you could ever run into Bigfoot. You and your dad are like, look, it's a Bigfoot. I can't believe we're seeing this together right now, but let's get out of here before this thing kills us.
All right. This was shot apparently near the Intracoastal Waterway earlier this month.
I don't see why these guys would lie about something like this, but they did say that the same thing happened to them 25 years ago. Which makes me think that either these guys are the two luckiest dudes in the world, or they're faking it. Seeing Bigfoot twice in one lifetime is like getting hit by lightning 23 times. Coming in at number 7, we have He's Still Around. If any of you had thought that Sasquatch had moved on to bigger and better things, or that if he was real he had probably gone extinct by now, well, I'll let you know that this picture was posted in January of 2020. This was posted on Twitter by the Washington State Department of Transportation. It was picked up by one of their roadside cameras, and if you look closely, you can see something right next to that tree that looks like a man walking in the snow. Now, the argument for this one has been that this is just a guy going for a hike. Now, it could be that, but I don't know a lot of people that would walk through the snow next to the highway. I mean, that's a good way to get lost and freeze to death. Coming in at number 6, we have Finding Bigfoot. This encounter got a ton of press. A guy in Michigan had a series of cameras set up on his massive property, and he picked up something very strange. The clip I'm going to show you is when the news covered it.
Back then, we couldn't show it. Now we can. A dark, hulking image amongst the trees that appeared in one frame. And
the popularity of this picture didn't stop there. It brought in people from the Animal Planet show Finding Bigfoot. They came down to investigate. They claimed that because of the location of the property, there could be a whole family of Bigfoot living out there. And when the Finding Bigfoot crew went through, they were unable to find hard evidence as to whether or not there was actually a Bigfoot on this man's property. But I feel like that's what Bigfoot is best at. He pops in for a few seconds, he makes you think that you're gonna find him, and then you come up empty-handed. Coming in at number 5, we have the Provo Canyon Encounter. Okay, I will admit it, this one freaked me out a little bit. I don't know where I stand on Bigfoot. Like, maybe he's real. There's a time when people thought pandas were a myth, and the people who had said that they had seen one were laughed out of town. So we could have the same thing happening with Bigfoot. But whether you're a believer or not, this video might leave you with a few questions.
Yeah, we probably should be too close to it, huh? Cool.
Like, that did look pretty legit. We don't get a 100% clear shot, so maybe it was the real thing. The only thing I don't understand is why these guys are running towards it. Like, sure, you want to make the discovery of a lifetime. You want to change the world and reveal that you found the missing link. But at the same time, you don't want to end up beaten to a bloody pulp by a mythical beast. Coming in at number 4, we have the Paul Freeman footage. This is some of the most famous Bigfoot footage among Bigfoot truthers. Now, I gotta let you guys know that this clip is pulled from 1994, so this video is not gonna be in 4K. The whole video is about 7 minutes long, and it's Paul Freeman scaling out some Bigfoot tracks, showing how long their strides are and how big the footprints are. And then he sees this walking through the bush. Use clip 8.
Oh, there he goes.
Now, this is just a peek at what Freeman saw that day. He goes on to follow those Sasquatch for about 3 minutes, and later you can see that there are 2 smaller Sasquatches along with the larger one. It's thought that this is a mother with her 2 little ones. Now, it is kind of convenient that he was mapping out Bigfoot tracks and then runs into a Bigfoot, but people in the Bigfoot community say that this video is legit. Coming at number 3, we have Bigfoot in Russia. Man, Bigfoot is getting around to more countries than me, and this dude doesn't even have a passport. This footage was taken by a few kids that were walking around the frozen wilderness in Russia. They came across something that looked like giant footprints. It looked like someone was walking through and they sloshed around in the snow to make all their tracks look bigger. The kids were very curious, so they followed them, and guess what they found? Well, you don't have to guess, I'm going to show you. Use clip 5.
And darts away.
After they see the beast, they turn tail and run, and as I said in a previous point, that is the smart thing to do. And when they got home, they showed their parents. The clip became so popular that National Geographic went to go investigate. Coming in at number 2, we have the Allegheny camera trap. When people talk about Bigfoot, I always think, why don't they just set up a camera trap so they can get pictures of the big lug and then that'll be that? Well, it turns out that someone has actually done this. It was a photographer by the name of Rick Jacobs. He went up to the Allegheny National Forest, which is quite a trek north of Pittsburgh, and he set up some cameras to get some amazing nature footage. Well, he got something natural as well as something mythical. That photo, along with several others, were sent to the Denver Post to publish as proof of Bigfoot. The bummer is that we don't get to see his face, but I do have to say that this creature, whatever it is, doesn't look like a bear or something I've seen walking around in the woods. Its hair is too short. It definitely looks more like a primate. And coming in for the number 1 spot, we have Surprise. I really could title any of these Surprise. I don't think anyone has ever seen a Bigfoot and was like, oh, that's a regular creature that I've seen so many times before. I'm not shocked at all. But this guy in this next clip was just out hunting. He owns a big property in Mississippi, and while he was out looking for boar, he ran into this. The deeper and deeper I get into this, the more I become a believer. Now, in the description of this video, the person who posted it calls whatever this is a skunk ape, which is basically a southern Bigfoot.
First, because we've got to get this one out of the way early, you either love them or hate them, are so sick of hearing about them, or literally can't get enough. Half of you are gonna roast me in the comments for even mentioning them, and the other half would have been pissed if I didn't bring them up. So, did you guess mermaids? Okay, good, because it was obvious. Mermaids are probably the most popular mythical creatures to date, with origin stories coming from just about every corner of the globe. And just in case you've been living under an actual boulder, mermaids are humanoid mammal fish that generally come with the top half of a beautiful woman and the bottom half of some kind of mix between dolphins and marlin. Also known as sirens and said to be quite the charmers, with a nice set of pipes, as thousands of stories exist about the creatures luring sailors to their watery death with nothing more than their beauty and a song. I guess beauty really is in the eye of the drunken sailor, because it appears as though what was once thought to be a creature of ultimate fantasy is actually just a manatee, or dugong, also referred to as a sea cow. So, myth busted? Well, the thing is, manatees are generally only found in waters of about 3 to 7 feet deep, maximum 10 to 17, which kind of begs the question, are we really sure that a dugong is all the sailors saw out on the rolling deep sea in the dead of night? Well, I'll put it to you this way. To date, only 5% of the ocean has been explored, so we never really know. Next up, we have the Lernaean Hydra, a creature that finds its origins based in Greek mythology. The Hydra is said to have been birthed by the mother and father of monsters, and to have 3 to 7 heads, toxic breath and blood, as well as regenerative and immortal properties. Hercules was the one to defeat the creature in a daring battle in which he cut off the monsters' heads only to watch in horror as they grew back stronger. Eventually, however, Hercules realized that by cauterizing the point of breakage between neck and head, he no longer had this problem. As Hercules came closer to victory, the mother of the beast, fearful for its demise, sent a giant crab down to the river in which the snake-like creature lived in order to assist it in the battle. But success was not given to the monsters that day, as they both perished in the fight. A 3-headed corn snake, appropriately named none other than Hydra, is our modern-day version of the giant reptilian creature. The 3 heads are due to a phenomenon referred to as polycephaly that creates mutations within the animals. What do you think? So, you know the giant crab I mentioned like just a minute ago? Well, yeah, that's actually real too. Surprise! This mythical creature comes to us in the form of a Japanese spider crab. These monsters that come from the deep sea are massive, with a possible leg span of up to 13 feet across and a diet that consists of dead or decaying fish. So basically corpses. Not only that, but the creatures are said to be immortal, as they are thought to live for over 100 years and also have the ability to regenerate their limbs. Another fun fact, when the giant crab reaches adulthood, its center body stops growing, but just like human ears and noses, its legs will continue to grow throughout its lifespan. Oh, and females of the species can also lay up to 1.5 million eggs within a single birthing season. So, yeah. Super cool. Next on the list, we have the ningen, a staple of mid-2000s Japanese folklore. This aquatic whale-like humanoid is said to roam throughout the icy waters of the Antarctic region. The creature was reportedly first sighted by both Japanese fishing and research vessels claiming to have seen the human-like figures within the waters beneath their boats. The ningen, which means human in Japanese, is said to be somewhere between 60 and 90 feet long, meaning it's ginormous, and many people believe the animal's existence is being covered up by the government because of the fact that the original video said to have captured the ningen has since been wiped from all corners of the internet. However, it appears that 3 photographs do still remain available for our viewing pleasure. One, taken from a remote-operated camera that depicts the creature in a greenish glow, another from an aerial view showing off its massive size, and one more captured through ROV, remote-operated vehicle footage, depicting the creature floating eerily in the dark of the deep sea. At our halfway point, we have the jackalope. Believe it or not, the horned rabbit is in fact real, and also way creepier than we thought. The legend of the jackalope found its origins in North American folklore, described as a jackrabbit with the horns of an antelope. While some cultures view the animal as an omen of bad luck, others view it as a sign of good fortune. In reality, it's actually neither. I mean, it's kind of bad luck for the rabbit, as the occurrence of the horns, which look more like random spikes than antelope antlers, is due to a disease called Shope virus, which originally appeared in cottontails, not jackrabbits, and is closely related to the HPV virus. However, the Shope strain is non-transmittable from animals to humans. The disease, which causes hard, dark warts to grow on the face of cottontails, has now also been found within bush rabbits, black-tailed jackrabbits, snowshoe hares, European rabbits, and even domestic ones too. Next, we have the sea serpent, not something you really want to see on a day out in the water, or maybe you do, as mythologically speaking, serpents were said to be representative of creative life force as well as fertility. Along with that, the fabled shedding of the oceanic reptile skin has been said to represent transformation, rebirth, and immortality. So how does all this talk of omens and myths translate to reality? The titanoboa, a 47-foot-long aquatic snake estimated to have lived 58 to 60 million years ago, discovered, fossilized of course, in the early 2000s by the Smithsonian Tropical Research Institute in a coal mine deep within the rainforests of Colombia. Now, because the titanoboa is now extinct, I'll give you a 2 for 1. Today, scientists believe that the creature many sailors mistakenly mistook for a sea serpent is none other than the oarfish. As I mentioned in my previous video, that thing can grow up to be 36 feet long, making it the largest bony fish alive today. No 47-foot-long prehistoric sea snake, but it is pretty close. This next one is for all of my Game of Thrones fans out there who, I'm pretty sure like me, will be very happy to learn that, no, not dragons guys, I'm a researcher, not a miracle worker, but like I said, dire wolves actually do exist. Well, did exist. Like I said, I'm no miracle worker. Epicyon haydeni, as they are scientifically referred to, went extinct around 5 million years ago, so we just missed them. But our human ancestors might have lived amongst them, as our earliest record of human life does date back to sometime between 5 and 7 million years ago. The massive canid would have stood 35 inches, about 3 feet tall at the shoulder, and had a length of just 1.2 inches shy of 8 feet long. The largest canine alive today, and therefore the closest depiction we have to the direwolf, is the gray wolf, which comes in at an honestly just slightly less impressive shoulder height of 30 inches and body length of 6 feet. Next up is the kraken. Like mermaids, I guarantee you've heard of this one before, but if not, here it goes. A gigantic, legendary sea monster and another yet major enemy of our seafaring sailor friends, the kraken has been known to sink ships in minutes with its gigantic squid-like tentacles and beak. Well, not so much squid-like as squid exactly. Thought to be nothing more than a myth up until 1856, when the discovery of the giant squid took place in 1856, when a Danish zoologist uncovered records of Danish men having caught the creature all the way back in 1550. The largest giant squid, also known as the chief squid, discovered to date is an insane 13 meters long, that's almost 43 feet, and weighs 495 kilograms, which is 1,091 pounds. So while the animal probably wouldn't have been able to sink gigantic fleets of Voyager ships as the legends tell, I'm guessing it wouldn't have much trouble taking down a rowboat or two. Guys, I hate to do this to you because I so wanted it to be true that an inconceivably large shark species was roaming around the deep to one day be discovered by marine scientists and research experts, but the thing is, the megalodon just isn't that big. I mean, it's huge, but also some reports have suggested that it's literally the same size as a whale shark, and actually a bit smaller, as the largest whale shark apparently measured up to 18.5 meters, 60 feet, whereas the megalodon was said to have measured in at just 18 meters, 59 feet. But I get it, you're looking for a giant carnivorous shark, so let me give you this. An even bigger shark, I'm talking about a mega-sized megalodon, possibly measuring in at more than 30 meters or 100 feet, might have existed at some point. You see, before humans began spreading out across the globe, there was something called megafauna, which basically just refers to really large animals, some examples being the dire wolf, mammoths, saber-toothed tigers, and woolly rhinoceroses. When humans began to encroach on the lands of these animals, it is predicted that there was not enough resources to support both them and our Homo sapien ancestors, and because they were much larger than us, and therefore most likely had longer gestation periods and required more food and land, as we said hello to the agricultural revolution, we unfortunately waved goodbye to the majority of the world's megafauna on land. And when the fishing industry began to pick up, aquatic megafauna began to die off as well, most likely including the megalodon. But who knows? Again, only 5% of the ocean has been explored to date. Alright guys, before we get into the last one, please let me know the weirdest creature that you've ever seen down below in the comments. Lastly, we have the chimera, a creature often referred to in Greek mythology as an amalgamation of many different animals fused together. And this thing is so cool to look at. The creature was discovered in the 1980s in the Karoo region of South Africa, and it's still around today, but the earliest fossil found so far dates all the way back to around 280 million years ago. But it is said that the species first came to be after diverging from their shark relatives almost 400 million years ago. Due to their ghostly appearance and their close relation to sharks via their prehistoric shark ancestors, this species has been appropriately nicknamed the ghost shark. Straightforward. I like it. The ghost shark can be found in pretty much all oceans except for the Arctic at a depth of about 2,600 to 8,500 feet. They weigh generally between 5.5 to 8.8 pounds and are a cartilage-based animal. They have one gill on either side of their bodies and have an upper jaw fused to their skull. Think about taking a swim with one of these as you fall asleep tonight.
In 1958, Jerry Crew, a logging company bulldozer operator in Humboldt County, California, discovered a set of large 16-inch human-like footprints sunk deep within the mud in the Six Rivers National Forest. Upon informing his coworkers, many claimed to have seen similar tracks on previous job sites, as well as telling of odd incidents such as an oil drum weighing 450 pounds having been moved without explanation. Soon began to utilize the term Bigfoot to describe the mysterious culprit. Jerry, who initially believed someone was playing a prank on them, once again observed more of these numerous massive footprints and contacted a reporter. A plaster cast was made of the footprints, and Jerry appeared holding one of the casts on the front page of a newspaper on October 6, 1958. With multiple people experiencing the same thing, it makes me question how it could not be real. Number 9. One of the earliest sightings in Florida. In 1975 in Florida, Collier County, a family found some Bigfoot footprints. A family went hunting out on a boys' trip, and the man retelling the story was 13 years old at the time. He said, "My family drove out to a secluded area of the Everglades, way out in the middle of nowhere. We tracked through waist-high vegetation growth, and when we reached a clearing and continued in a horizontal line towards a tree line approximately 100 yards away. We supposedly were hunting for rabbits, but never saw one. As we approached the tree line, we came upon a recently dried out water hole. Here is where I spotted the tracks. They were at least 17 15 inches in length, 2 half prints and 1 full print in the mud going into the brush line. The brush on the other side was thrashed. I recall that we left the area not longer after it, and it basically ended our trip. I feel like with what I know now, it was a skunk ape. I swear on the Bible on this experience. I clearly remember no sign of animal activity to include land or air. No birds. Weird for 7 p.m. aka dusk in the Everglades. 6 of us saw it, but at the time none of us said anything. I remember it was 1975, only 8 years after the Patterson film. Number 8. California state. In the United States, California is the state with the most reported Bigfoot sightings. So far, there have been 461 reported sightings. This is a real story from January 2022. A family was hiking in Humboldt County on a local trail in Red Crest. They hiked this trail for 19 years and do it 3 to 4 times a week, and they always go as a family. Their story goes, in the summer we hiked the trail nearly every day. We've never ever gotten the creeps in those woods. The last 2 hikes have really changed that. We were nearly done. On our way out when a loud, and I'm talking loud, yell, scream, guttural screech echoed through the woods. My family and I have grown up in redwoods. We've heard everything that nature has to offer in the way of animal sounds, but it wasn't a raven, a fox, a bear, a lion, a deer bleat, a chipmunk, or a hawk. It sounded somewhat like a human, but the fact that it traveled through the woods so clearly and loud really shook all of us. Today, the sound was nothing we've ever heard before. It was loud and defined. It was just far enough in the distance for whatever it was to get its point across without making us petrified. It stopped my mother, me, and my son in our tracks. There was no doubt that we all heard the same thing. We got the feeling that we were being watched, and that feeling didn't go away until we started driving off. Number 7. Bigfoot body. 2 men, Matt Witten and Rick Dyer, claimed to have stumbled across a Bigfoot corpse in the woods northern of Georgia, and they stood by their story at a news conference in Palo Alto, during which they offered an email from an entomologist as evidence and said they have kept the body in a freezer for more than a month. Everyone who was talked down to us is going to eat their words, said Matt, an officer on medical leave from the Clayton County Police Department. Matt and Rick, a former corrections officer, announced the discovery on YouTube and their website. Although they didn't consider themselves devoted Bigfoot trackers before then, they have since started offering weekend search expeditions in Georgia for $499. The specimen they bagged, the men say, was one of several ape-like creatures they spotted cavorting the woods. Was it real or just a cash grab? Who knows, but finding the body of Bigfoot? Wow. Number 6. The footprint. In Logan, Utah, Matthew Wentz came across a large footprint he thinks could have been made by a Sasquatch in the Bear River Range. He didn't see the creature, only found the print, but he took a photo of it. Matthew, who is 6'3", explained that a mountain lion track is not much bigger than his palm. The black bear tracks he has seen are not any bigger than his hand, so that eliminates some comments of people saying it was possibly from a bear. He said, "I wear size 12 shoe, and in comparison to that, there is no bear that would make a print that big. I've looked up bear tracks, and even the largest grizzly bear, this track is bigger. That track is in the 15 to 16 inch range, which is pretty big. If you take a shoe size, it would be bigger than a size 20. The width was 6 to 7 inches. I really believe there is some tall being out there, but I have no idea what it is. It's hard to believe they would be around here because there are so many people and more going into the mountains these days compared to 30 or 40 years ago. People used to see stuff all the time." He also said, "I have multiple friends that are older than me that have seen stuff around here. They're credible, but they don't talk about it. You know, when someone has seen something and it scares them, they don't really want to talk about it or be ridiculed." Number 5. Hitchhiking. To this day, there are still sightings in Florida, and in 2021, as a commuter was driving down US 1, they were driving south just after sunset, and there was one on the road beside him and another truck. While driving, he noticed something very large walking on the west side of US 1, walking north, approaching him. His best description of what he saw was a huge football player in shoulder padding, 6 to 7 feet tall, wearing a long, shaggy fur coat. This happened in the summertime in Florida, so no no human would dare wear one, it would be too hot. He said, I slowed down as I became level with what I saw, and it had the head of an ape with a bump on its head. The fur was long and looked white, kind of like a dirty white shag carpet. As he drove past, the beast did not turn to look at him, but kept looking straight ahead. It was out in the open, and he thinks the other truck saw it too due to their driving actions, but that is just insane. Number 4, the professor. Dr. Jeffrey Meldrum is a professor of autonomy and anthropology. He teaches at Idaho State University, and his lab houses over 300 footprint casts from a mysterious North American primate. He said historical evidence for the existence of Bigfoot takes the form of Native American accounts of a wild man in the woods. Depictions are remarkably similar across tribes considering the differing regional circumstances and interpretations. As European settlers pressed westward into the wilderness, they too reported encounters with wild men, buggers, giant hairy apes, mountain devils, etc. As a student of human bipedalism, our adaptations for walking on 2 feet, the best contemporary evidence are footprints that corroborate these stories of wild men. Something is leaving oversized human-like footprints. They are either hoaxed, misidentified, or the trace of a real species. The distinctive anatomy, documented consistently over the past 70 years, is compelling evidence of the latter. Number 3, indigenous cultures. Many of the indigenous cultures across North America and continent include tales of mysterious hair-covered creatures living in forests and legends that existed long before contemporary reports of Bigfoot. On the Tule River Indian Reservation in Central California, they believe in a group of Bigfoot called the Family. They called the largest of them hairy men, and they are estimated to be between 500 and 1,000 years old. Other tribes tell stories about Sasquatch, a shape-shifting creature that protects the forest. The name Sasquatch is the anglicized version of Sasquatch, roughly translating to hairy man. Other tales from different tribes describe them as a nocturnal race, and children were warned against saying the name so the monsters would not come and carry them off in the night. In 1847, natives talked about Skookums, a race of human-eating wild men living on the peak of Mount St. Helens in southern Washington state. Also related to this area was an alleged incident in 1924 in which a violent encounter between a group of gold prospectors and a group of ape men occurred. These allegations were reported in July 16, 1924. This has become a popular piece of Bigfoot lore, with the area now being referred to as Ape Canyon. Number 2, the Reddit Bigfoot Hunter. One Reddit user posted on the Ask Me Anything subreddit. They claim to have had countless interactions with Bigfoot and have done a lot of research. They list important things, being number 1, the most common misconception about Bigfoot is that there's only one of them. I and a vast majority of Bigfoot enthusiasts believe there exists self-perpetuating species of the bipedal ape residing in North America. Cousin species are likely the abominable snowman, yeti, and yowie, among others. Number 2, as recently as 300,000 years ago, there exists skeletal evidence of a species of a massive ape called Gigantopithecus blackie.
Gigantopithecus.
A massive ape called Gigantopithecus blackie. Many Bigfoot enthusiasts believe these are ancestors of modern Big Feet. Number 3, there is an average of 400 reported sightings each year. Based on these reports, Big Feet can be characterized as follows: walk upright, up to 8 feet tall, covered in black, brown, red fur all over their bodies except for the face, palms, and soles, secrete a foul smell, nocturnal behavior, omnivorous diet, marked intelligence and senses of smell, vision, and hearing, extremely cautious behavior around humans. The most numerous examples of physical evidence are footprint casings. The stride length heel to heel between prints is usually 4 to 5 feet, and the depth of the prints denotes the specimen weighing 600 to 700 pounds. Number 1, the president believed. US President Theodore Roosevelt, in his 1893 book The Wilderness Hunter, writes a story he was told by an elderly mountain man named Bowman, in which a foul-smelling bipedal creature ransacked his beaver trapping camp, stalked him, and later became hostile when it fatally broke his companion's neck in the wilderness near the Idaho-Montana border. Roosevelt notes that Bowman appeared fearful while telling the story, but attributed the trapper's folkloric German ancestry to have potentially influenced him, but it seems like he believed him. A president believing in something like this? That's unheard of. It has to be true then.
Want to see more videos like this one? How about this video right here? It's actually part 1 to this series. We have even more Bigfoot footage that will blow your mind, so make sure to click the video now to see more. See you guys in the next video.